Now we're going to talk about solving absolute value equations. In fact, I would say this is the number one issue, really it's not even close, that students coming out of Algebra 1 have trouble with. And it's just, you probably spent 1 or 2 days on it, and it's easy to forget. So I'm going to try to make this a little bit more memorable. I'm going to do just one example. Before I get into that, let me talk a little bit about absolute values, what they are, and then we'll do an equation, and hopefully this will help by the end of this lesson. So absolute value, what is an absolute value? You could look up a definition and see, it would say it's like a distance from 0. So, how far is 7 from 0? It's 7. How far is -3 from 0? It's 3. Sure, that's fine. But another way to think of it is this. Imagine you're an absolute value. You have two jobs. You either keep positives positive, or you change negatives to positive. Which one do you think is more satisfying in your life as an absolute value equation? I bet you're right. I bet it's making negative numbers positive. Because when you do that, you feel really good about yourself. You're walking down the street and you see, you say, hey, check out that 3 over there. It was negative. I made it positive. That's right. I made it positive. You start feeling good about yourself, that you're turning people around. Negative things are becoming positive things. How cool would that be? So that's part of your job. But the other part is a little more mundane. You're making 7s remain 7. And that's where I'm sure people might give you a hard time. They go, what did you do today? And you said, well, I kept that 7 over there being a 7. So they say, so you did nothing, right? Yes, I basically did nothing. So one job is rather mundane, one is pretty glorious, pretty exciting. You feel good about yourself. So I try to kind of embellish that a little bit and help you remember that an absolute value has two jobs. And that means that when you solve an equation, an absolute value equation, you're going to see that there are two options. Either the absolute value could have done the mundane thing, or it could have done the exciting thing. So we have to consider both. And that's why you're typically, not always, but typically going to have two solutions. So let's look at an example. Let's kind of go to a new page. Okay, example here. Let's say you have absolute value of 2x. Whoops. Absolute value of 2x minus 3 equals 10. It's tempting to say, ooh, let's make it 2x plus 3. The negative goes away. But no, an absolute value doesn't do that. If this were, let's just do an example real fast. Let's say this was 2 times 1 minus 3. That becomes 2 minus 3, which is -1. Then the absolute value would make it 1. If you change that to a plus right away, it would think it was 5. So the absolute value is the thing it's done last. Really, it's kind of like it's order of operations. You're going to do what's in the absolute value is really like a parenthesis. You're going to do what's in the parentheses first, and then you will take the absolute value. So you simplify within, then you take it. And that makes things a little bit harder to work with maybe. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to say there are two options. 2x minus 3 could have been just 10. So I'm going to actually split up. This is going to split into two things. It could have been 10, and that would have been the mundane option, where the absolute value really does nothing, and it really doesn't contribute to society much. It just keeps a positive, big deal. But the other option is where it really gets them excited. 2x minus 3, it could have been -10, and if it was -10, the absolute value would have made it +10, and we would have been very impressed with that absolute value, wouldn't we? So let's consider both scenarios. 2x minus 3 could just be 10, and it could be -10. So we set those up, we solve them, and those are our two solutions. So let's solve each, adding 3, and I know this is the part that you're really good at, so I won't spend a whole lot of time. Dividing by 2, dividing by 2. And so you end up with 13 over 2. That's a fine answer, but if you'd rather write 6.5, you could do that because the decimal does not, it terminates. It doesn't just go on forever, so it's not a rounded value. But there's another option too. Over here, 2x could have been -10 plus 3 is -7. and x could have been negative 7/2, also known as negative 3.5. So there's our two solutions. It could be one or the other. Both work. You could try it. Put in 6.5 in there. 2 times 6.5 is 13 minus 3 is 10. The absolute value of 10 is indeed 10. If you put in a negative 3.5, you get negative 7 minus 3 is negative 10. The absolute value of negative 10 is 10. So this is how you solve absolute value equations. Hope that helps.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.